Karoline Leavitt is the press secretary at the White House, doing a great job. Such a great job that the ladies of The View feel the green monster coming upon them. They really don't like this woman. She's a good communicator. And so Joy Behar,
the ABC talk show, The View is hooked in a fresh lawsuit after host Joy Behar jabbed the new White House press secretary Karoline Leavitt, questioning her qualification for the role in the Trump administration. What exactly did Joy Behar say about Karoline Leavitt that led to the lawsuit? Would they escape this one involving the White House? If not, what are the potential consequences of this lawsuit for the show and its hosts?
I was just in Karoline Leavitt's first briefing as the White House press secretary. Not a surprise, given it was essentially must-see TV during Trump's first term, that this room behind me, the James Brady briefing room, was essentially packed with standing room only around the chairs that you see on TV. I was in the front row, and a lot of the questions today focused on that memo that was issued last night, pausing all federal funding, essentially trillions of dollars that is spent by all of the government agencies that's already been appropriated by Congress, meaning the money is already there for these programs, but they put a pause to it, saying that they want to review it and make sure it fits in with the Trump agenda. It's caused a lot of confusion, and a lot of people are seeking clarity. Democrats on Capitol Hill are saying Trump doesn't have the legality to do this. But I asked Karoline Leavitt about that matter. She says it was the White House counsel who advised Trump that, yes, he did have the authority to do so. Expect legal challenges to this, as there are a lot of questions about what it's going to affect. Veterans organizations, homeless shelters, disaster relief. There are so many agencies that are being touched by this pause. And really a big question, they say it's temporary, but the White House could not say exactly how long it could last.
As you have seen during the past week, President Trump is hard at work fulfilling the promises that he made to the American people on the campaign trail. Since taking the oath of office, he has caused an uproar with more than 300 executive actions. Amid the uproar, White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt has emerged as a central figure in the controversy.
Today was the first press conference for Donald Trump's press secretary, Karoline Leavitt. And if you assume she was a pretty white lady with a noticeable cross necklace, you were right. And of course she was Trump's press secretary during the campaign, but that was all about trashing Joe Biden. Now she's in an elevated position representing the White House, and she's here to talk about what the administration is going to do moving forward.
When Joe Biden was in the Oval Office, or upstairs in the residence sleeping, I'm not so sure.
Oh, shit! Didn't you see that coming, did you, old man, huh? Nailed your sleepy ass. But seriously, you get one. All right, so let's move forward. Today, everyone wants to know about the federal spending freeze that Trump's been doing. So what's that about?
We've seen the Biden administration spend money like drunken sailors.
Oh, boom! Drunken sailors! Everyone knows they spend so much money.
Leavitt, 27, is the youngest press secretary in White House history. She previously worked as a correspondence office intern during President Donald Trump's first term before later becoming assistant press secretary. The White House briefing room was packed with press for the first briefing of Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt, 27, the youngest press secretary in history.
Okay, thank you. How are you? Nice live shot. Good to see all of you. Happy Friday. It's great to be back with you. I want to provide an update on President Trump's actions in the wake of the catastrophic air collision that tragically claimed the lives of 67 people at Reagan National Airport on Wednesday night. Everyone in this White House continues to mourn the victims and keep their friends and families in our thoughts and prayers during this unimaginable time. First, within moments of the collision, the president and his newly appointed team were in immediate communication. The president was briefed on Wednesday evening following the crash, again on Thursday morning, and he has continued to receive updates as recovery efforts continue on the ground. The president, as you know, took time to address the nation yesterday afternoon. To deliver accountability, President Trump swiftly signed a memorandum directing an immediate assessment of the Federal Aviation Administration to ensure the federal government is maintaining the highest personnel and policy aviation safety standards.
During Leavitt's first briefing, she remarked on the Trump administration since canceling of the federal funding freeze memo. While discussing the since rescinded federal funding freeze memo, the Trump appointee used it as an opportunity to attack left-leaning ideology. According to Leavitt, The pause would mean no more funding for transgenderism and wokeness across the U.S. federal bureaucracy and agencies.
I would like this young lady this is her first job, I would like her to do a little homework. Because she said something yesterday that really pissed me off. And that was, she said, there will be no wokeness here.
Oh, yeah.
Let me explain something to you. Because without that wokeness, you might not have that job.
Yeah.
Because women were not invited to that table. Women were not invited to many tables in this nation. The reason we fought and busted our behinds to make sure that you didn't have to worry about this. And now to hear you talk about it and to hear anybody talk about the wokeness was put in place for a reason.
Anyway, I think she's probably been put in there because according to Donald Trump, she's a 10. You know that's what it is.
Whoopi Goldberg schools Trump press secretary with a brutal lesson on wokeness. She reminded folks that there was a reason for wokeness, since there was a time when black people and women were allowed to attend college. The reason we fought and busted our behinds was to make sure that you didn't have to worry about this. White women are the ones who benefit the most from affirmative action, a fact that Leavitt refused to acknowledge. Goldberg argued that wokeness was put in place for a reason black people and women once weren't admitted into colleges. Goldberg went on to point to Joe Biden's White House press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, the first black person and first openly LGBTQ person to serve in the role, as she stressed the fight for women of all kinds of colors and ilks to have the opportunity to bust down that door.
I think she's probably been put in there because according to Donald Trump, she's a 10. You know that's what it is.
I want to be clear, though, it's not her first job. It was her first press briefing. She worked in the previous Trump administration.
But there is more to come. The View host Joy Behar hurls sexist insult at new White House press secretary Karoline Leavitt. Joy Behar sparked backlash after she launched a sexist attack on new White House press secretary Karoline Leavitt, saying she only got the position because of her looks.
Karoline Leavitt is the press secretary at the White House, doing a great job. Such a great job that the ladies of The View feel the green monster coming upon them. They really don't like this woman. She's a good communicator. And so Joy Behar just offered her analysis on why Leavitt was picked for the role.
I think she's probably been put in there because according to Donald Trump, she's a 10. You know that's what it is.
I want to be clear, though, it's not her first job. It was her first press briefing. She worked in the previous Trump administration.
Okay, so that lady, the fake Republican on The View, she's kind of defending Karoline Leavitt here. She realizes Joy Behar has gone a little too far. What's Behar saying? She only got that job because she's hot. That actually isn't true. She's a very nice looking lady, but it isn't true that that's why she got the job. She got the job because she was the national spokesman for the campaign, and she did a very good job in that role. And the campaign was hugely successful and communicated very effectively. That is why she got the job. Even if Karoline Leavitt weren't a pretty lady, even if she were a male, gremlin, monstrous-looking fellow, she still would have gotten the job based on how effective the campaign communications was. Furthermore, Karoline Leavitt ran for Congress. I was talking to Roger Stone about this when we were trying to figure out who the picks for the administration were going to be. He said, I think Leavitt's going to get the White House press sec job. I think she earned the job, and I like that she has been in the fire. She's run for office, so she's taken the slings and arrows that go with being in the active campaign politics. That's why she got the job. But even factoring in that she's a nice-looking lady, I love that the libs' attacks on conservatives right now are that we're hot and cool.
Behar's remark was quickly countered by fellow panelist Alyssa Farah Griffin, a former Trump administration staffer, who told Behar that it wasn't her first job, it was just her first press briefing. The exchange came as panelist Whoopi Goldberg also laid into Leavitt. Goldberg said she took issue with Leavitt saying there would be no more funding for transgenderism and wokeness across our federal bureaucracy and agencies, and argued that Leavitt only has her role due to wokeness. The barbs directed at Leavitt came after the 27-year-old used her first White House press conference to scold legacy media for losing the trust of everyday Americans. Viewers took to social media to slam The View hosts for their takes on Leavitt, with one ex-user insisting that despite their insults, she got the job because she is qualified. Another said, if I could get hired to that high of a position for being smart, and beautiful I would take it. They're just jealous. On Behar's remark that Leavitt only got her job based on her looks, a Republican said anything remotely like that they would be pilloried.
There is nothing better than a catfight, especially among people who are just preternaturally and naturally miserable people like Joy Behar and that Caitlin Collins, the brow, the one on CNN. Have you seen them? Oh, dear God. The spectacle around and surrounding the recent attacks on America's sweetheart, Karoline Leavitt, a mere 27-year-old press secretary, a genius, the youngest press secretary in history at, dare I say again, 27, has revealed not only the thinly veiled catfighting, bitchy, snitchy, witchy jealousy of her critics, but the lengths to which radical left media like CNN and The View will go to tear down rising stars of the Trump administration instead of helping them, being proud of them as women. What, are you kidding? At the heart of the bizarre episode are these snipes and jabs from the likes of Joy Behar and Whoopi Goldberg, who instead of offering constructive criticism, resorted to shallow, sexist remarks, snide, petty jabs and grievances. Behar went as far as saying that Karoline Leavitt only got her position because, according to Donald Trump, she's a 10. A comment so backward that if it had come from a conservative, it would have caused an uproar. Joy Behar's sniveling, mean-spirited, tasteless comments didn't just reek of envy and jealousy, this harridan. They exposed her inability to comprehend that young, capable women can succeed on merit, not just appearance. Her remarks, her comments, were immediately countered by former Trump staffer Elisa Farrah Griffin.
But there's more. Joy Behar moved her name a few notches higher on MAGA's hit list when she accused Donald Trump of hiring people on their looks. This time, when it comes to new White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt. MAGA insider Charlie Kirk took to X to slam Behar's comment as disgusting and anti-woman. He added that after the masterclass Leavitt put on yesterday, running circles around the legacy media, this is an idiotic and bitter thing to say. Megyn Kelly, who spent the day sitting beside Cheryl Hines at Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s confirmation hearing, went a slightly different route, posting, "Not true and meant to diminish Karoline, but let's face it, this administration / its supporters are making America hot again, and it's amazing." Conservative columnist Tiana Lodosker, meanwhile, called Behar a boomer folksmanist in her ex-post slamming the comment. She added that Behar doesn't even blink twice, claiming that Karoline Leavitt, who objectively delivered like crazy for over a year running Trump's campaign press, only got her job because of her looks. The View panel acknowledged that Leavitt worked on the previous Trump administration and Capitol Hill during the discussion, with former Trump aide Elisa Farrah Griffin defending her credentials most loudly. Behar's suggestion that Trump selected his press secretary based on her physical appearance makes sense in the context of his repeated comments about preferring a central casting look to the people he selects to work for him. A former senior Trump official told Axios the president prefers to pick who will ultimately be well received on the outside, whether he's hiring men or women. According to CNN, Trump referred to various figures around him as looking like they came from central casting at least 5 times during his first year in office. But MAGA is irate over Behar's comments, insisting that her statement criticizing Trump's hiring practices was her asserting that conservative women can't be beautiful and smart. As the press briefing moved on, Leavitt announced that the new White House administration was introducing a new media section of the press pool. While she introduced the new section, she slammed traditional media for the lies that have been pushed about President Trump. As she ended her talks about traditional media, she pointed out that the White House will call them out when their reporting is wrong, or there is misinformation about this White House. She announced that the 2 seats usually reserved for White House staff would become the new media seats, and those individuals would get to ask the first questions. Traditionally, the wire service, the Associated Press, gets the first question, while the White House Correspondents Association dictates which outlets get which seats in the James S. Brady press briefing room. But starting today, this seat in the front of the room, which is usually occupied by the press secretary's staff, will be called the new media seat. The new press secretary told everyone that her team will review the applications and give credentials to new media applicants who meet laid-down criteria and pass United States Secret Service requirements to enter the White House complex. Leavitt also announced that the Trump 2.0 administration would restore the press passes of 440 journalists whose passes were wrongly revoked by the Biden administration. While many praised the openness of the new approach, the hosts of The View said they disagreed with the upgrades. Sunny Hostin said she didn't believe the new media reporters would be qualified to be in the briefings, with Goldberg chiming in that people would just spout stuff under the new administration. Also, a first-term House Democrat is attacking White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt on X after she sought to clarify a White House memo taking back an earlier policy statement on President Donald Trump's federal funding order. Representative Dave Min, Democrat California, wrote on X, "Karoline Leavitt is a fake Christian, like so many in this Golden Calf administration." It comes after the White House revoked an Office of Management and Budget, OMB, memo that ordered the freeze of most federal grants and assistance, which was blocked by a federal judge. Leavitt posted on X that it was just a memo that had been rescinded and that Trump's executive orders targeting diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, and other progressive spending priorities remained intact. Getting back at the two, she wrote, "This is not a rescission of the federal funding freeze. It is simply a rescission of the OMB memo. Why? To end any confusion created by the court's injunction."
But is there any concern that we risk losing people with years of experience like doctors and let's say scientists?
Well, most doctors who work in actual hospitals and medical institutions have to show up to the office. We know that employees are more productive and more efficient when they are working in an in-office environment, and that's what this administration expects, and I think that's what American taxpayers expect. Don't forget, it's the American people who are funding this government, and they deserve people who are actually showing up to work on their behalf.
So, in light of the announcements, the first questions during the briefing went to the new media members whose outlets, despite being some of the most viewed news websites in the country, have not been given seats in this room. And before she turned to questions, she shared an update directly from the President of the United States on the New Jersey drones. According to the President, after research and study, the drones that were flying over New Jersey in large numbers were authorized to be flown by the FAA for research and various other reasons. Many of these drones were also hobbyists, recreational, and private individuals who enjoy flying drones. In the meantime, it got worse due to curiosity. And with that, she turned it over to questions and began with new media members.
Yeah, so Karoline, first off, thank you to you and President Trump for actually giving voices to new media outlets that represent millions and millions of Americans. The thing I would add, I've got a two-part question for you. The first is just, can you expand upon what steps the White House is going to take to bring more voices, not less, which is what our founder Andrew Breitbart believed in, into this room where they rightly belong?
Yeah. Absolutely. And as I said in my opening statement, Matt, it is a priority of this White House to honor the First Amendment. And it is a fact that Americans are consuming their news media from various different platforms, especially young people. And as the youngest press secretary in history, thanks to President Trump, I take great pride in opening up this room to new media voices to share the president's message with as many Americans as possible. In doing so, number one, we will ensure that outlets like yours, Axios and Breitbart, which are widely respected and viewed outlets, have an actual seat in this room every day. We also, again, encourage anybody in this country, whether you are a TikTok content creator, a blogger, a podcaster, if you are producing legitimate news content, no matter the medium, you will be allowed to apply for press credentials to this White House. And as I said earlier, our new media website is whitehouse.gov/new media. And so we encourage people to apply. Again, as long as you are creating news-related content of the day and you're a legitimate independent journalist, you're welcome to cover this White House.
The White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt faced criticism for evading key questions about a federal grant freeze during her first press briefing. The newly appointed White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt got a nasty new nickname from The View after her first press briefing. she gets the nickname Spinmeister. The title was given due to the way Leavitt handled questions regarding a recent federal grants and loans freeze, a subject that led to confusion during her first briefing. The confusion came amid the Trump administration's attempt to pause trillions in federal grants to ensure federal spending aligned with President Donald Trump's recent executive orders to abolish the Biden administration's DI agenda. Leavitt was repeatedly asked about the spending freeze and if said payments for Social Security, Medicare, and food stamps would not be affected. According to the report, the network's fact-checker, Daniel Dale, accused the press secretary of deflecting crucial details when asked about the impact of the spending freeze. When asked about nonprofit programs like Meals on Wheels, which rely on federal funding, Leavitt did not answer properly, sparking criticism. The View host pointed out that many nonprofits are dependent on federal aid and still lack clarity on their funding. After the announcement of this initiative, payments froze across various sectors and caused temporary shutdowns of Medicaid portals. Aid groups said lives were in danger as critical funding for vaccines and other health issues was frozen. She was labeled Spinmeister because of the way she avoided giving clear answers about the impact of the federal grant freeze, especially for nonprofits. If you liked today's video, be sure to check out some of our other videos currently on the screen.